There's a bit of debate over whether we call ourselves Froute or the F-Route. Obviously, Froute works visually. It doesn't work so well when I say it. People just assume it's just about fruit, but it's actually a network in East Gippsland of artists and fruitists. We called them fruitists because we wanted to include people who didn't define themselves as artists, and they were probably quite environmentally conscious, and there's a really neat fit between artists and fruitists and foodies and everyone who perhaps wanted to see a slightly different voice come out of East Gippsland to what was produced by corporate marketing and shires and things. So we're definitely driven by artists. I'm not an artist myself. I moved to Now in East Gippsland 15 years ago. I had worked for 10 years at Business Review Weekly, compiling the Rich 200, and I'd say I moved to Now where I moved in with the Poor 200, literally, because they are statistically one of the poorest communities in Australia with a population of 200. And I just found heaven, really. You know, I found a place where my talents were actually quite useful, and it's a very satisfying life to live there. I guess what our mission has become around Froute is facilitated community economic development. So we kind of realised that artists aren't the most necessarily valued commodity in regional places, and that we had to find our economic imperative in what we did. Froute is really lucky to have some of the most talented community development people probably in Victoria. If anyone knows Neil Smith or Helen Shield or Catherine Larkins, they're all people who have been in the industry for forever, and I suppose are my mentors in this project. Neil Smith in particular has done heaps of work for community enterprise, so he's worked for the Brotherhood of St Lawrence and things like that to develop social enterprise and community enterprise, and he's just a goldmine of a good process in rural communities. When I first moved to East Gippsland, which you probably all know is the very far east of Victoria, I was aware of the Mallacoota Arts Festival, and I think it was probably one of the most iconic events in the region, and I think it's still held up as a pioneer of great community process in Australia. And this was one of their iconic outcomes, this sunset ritual at Mallacoota. And as Catherine has mentioned, you know, this tiny little town ended up getting 4,000 people to their events, a 3-day event, and it probably imploded because of its own success in the end. But after its demise, we went into a bit of a limbo, really, as an arts region. I think we've lacked the drive to regain that position. So we came up with the idea of Froute. It was very much inspired by traditional skills in bottling, backyard fruit, found fruit. It just seemed a universal theme that people were able to engage in without feeling threatened, because a lot of people would come to these things and say, well, I'm not an artist and I don't know about that arty stuff, but they did love fruit and they did love what we were doing in the sharing of fruit. This is Dr. Elizabeth Bakewell teaching me how to preserve peaches, I think, at Now. What that experience turned into was a fruit breakfast, and the first one was a group of 4 of us at Now sitting around exhausted on Boxing Day, you know, having prepared for the influx of tourists that come to caravan parks, and all we did was really share our backyard fruit with visitors, and they just loved it. They loved being able to access local people, local stories in beautiful locations, in an orchard or a caravan park, and me being me, it started to tick away that this was actually a destination experience that we were cultivating that was right under everyone's nose, but no one was seeing what East Gippsland had to offer and what was becoming really cool in Melbourne. You know, people were chasing these nana skills and these traditional experiences. This was a fruit breakfast in Now at the Now Caravan Park. You wouldn't believe who's in that mix of people. You know, they're the most eclectic bunch of travellers who are coming through, mixing with locals and going away with a really memorable experience about what Froute had offered them. They were actually trying to illuminate light bulbs with those apples. That was to become an arts project, and someone had science knowledge about how if you plug all the wires in, you can charge light bulbs on it. what we had to offer became more and more well known, and other events started inviting us to their events because they knew that we brought this kind of joie de vivre about East Gippsland that was lacking in their own local community. So this was the Brew and Orange Fair. This is a kitchen in Goongra, which is 30 kilometres north of Orbost. This is an organic apple farm that's up there, and they're ignored by the region. The region doesn't value the hippies who live in Goongra because they don't see them. They're just treated as a threat to the normal way of life. But what Froute sees is value in everyone and the skills that they bring. So these guys have an amazing heritage apple farm up in Goongra. This was a fruit breakfast at Swiss Creek in the Cassala Cemetery. Chako Kato did the installation. Chako travels all around the world. She's a Japanese artist who spent several days in the cemetery connecting the apple trees and the headstones, and we had a fruit breakfast underneath it. So I guess all I'm trying to say is that at very low cost we were able to create these fairly memorable experiences. I like writing funding applications. As a journalist who loves the arts, I've found a niche in writing funding applications to Regional Arts Victoria and to Arts Victoria and to the Australia Council. We've had pretty good success. And I suppose one of our most successful outcome was the creation of this fruit cart. We got this Arts Victoria funding to build this. This is a local blacksmith from Tambawapa, Gary Belsky, who built the cart to our imaginings because we wanted a cart to serve our breakfast off, because up until then we were all lugging plates and things around, which was becoming a bit hard to do. Fast forward a couple of years, and this is the same cart at the Northcote Town Hall as part of an exhibition called Preserving Memories. We collaborated with a group in Northcote, and the 7:30 report came and televised it, and we've had loads of calls from all over the state for people wanting this venue that could travel and teach these environmental skills and gather their communities around something so beautiful. It really works, and all we do is apple fritters or something like that. They're vegan, they're local fruit, and they're delicious breakfasts with a lot of informality. A lot of it's just done on donations or contributions. So again, the cost is really quite low. And again, me being me, this started to feel like a brand, that was being missed by East Gippsland. That I get on really well with the East Gippsland marketing crew, but they obviously have to please many people and a very corporate message, whereas we wanted something that was much more niche, that was going to attract the people that we wanted to be surrounded with, and to let environmentalists and artists know that they were really welcome in our region, because as far as we're concerned, they make it the best place to live in. We got Regional Development Victoria funding to develop a fruit brand, which was a challenge, and Tim Ellis, our Economic Development Officer, was fantastic in that process. It took us a year to actually convince them that there was room for a niche brand in rural marketing, that they just thought it confused the message. We just think it enhances it, and that we know who we want. We know when we travel what we want to experience, and we wanted to say, if you come to East Gippsland and tap into Froute, you'll find all these really cool people and this really nice stuff. It's quite affordable too, because being East Gippsland, we don't have a lot of infrastructure, we don't have a lot of restaurants, wineries. It's about creating the experience from the people that have great cooking skills, great gardening skills. That Regional Development Victoria funding allowed us to start to produce a series of postcards. These are all done by a girl who's I've kind of adopted, I suppose. She's just a bundle of energy. She's 23 years old. She works in Macca's or at the taco factory a lot of the time, and the rest of the time she does the graphic design for me. She ropes her friends in to be models. She writes the blurbs, she blogs. She's just a dynamo. So she's kind of become our brand person, and does this kind of, the Instagram and the whole thing really well. And typical of that is this kind of, we all love Frankie magazine, I guess. Frankie magazine and Smith Journal are probably the benchmarks that we think, we can do this in the country, you know, it's not, it should be our territory, you know. This is a guy called Gabriel who lives completely self-sufficient with his family of artists in just outside of Bairnsdale. They donated all those apples to our last breakfast. He's a boutique beer brewer in his spare time, and I guess they're a symbol of the things we're tapping into that otherwise feel quite alienated by the normal process of councils, that they're not in the normal networks, but they're out there and they make the region a great place to live. At this point, we were kind of told we needed to have an event. So we invented Fruiteville because it was going to be at Johnsonville where all the peaches are grown, but that ended up not working out. So we moved to Nicholson River Winery and had a big fruit breakfast. So basically we just upped the ante a bit with what we'd been doing with breakfast and had a breakfast for 200 or 300 people with the peaches from the Johnsonville orchard and everyone bringing really fruity cakes, and the cakes had to be full of polenta and, you know, whole grains and things. No refined kind of cakes were what we served up. That's my husband, who I actually haven't seen for 8 months. He's over in France at the moment. So I'm looking forward to him coming back soon. He does all the heavy work around these festivals. So moving our fruit letters around is part of that job. This is at the Nicholson River Winery, where we're just setting up for the event. This is just a photo. I guess it probably doesn't show up quite that well, but we have a photographer from South Gippsland who built the travelling fruit museum. So she has a cart that actually she photographs and collects, you know, amazing fruit objects. Last year's Fruiteville, I rang Costa and said, can you come? He looked at the website and he said, sure. And he did, and I couldn't believe it. He never answered, he never wrote to me again. He just said, I said, I'll be there, you know. And he came, he flew down from Sydney, he hired a car from Melbourne, and he came for 2 days, and he just hung around and made friends with everyone. He laid around on the lawn, he talked to the permaculture people that had come, the gardeners, and he was the most fantastic ambassador for fruit because he spent all his time talking to Tim Bull, the local MP, and the councillors, and telling them that local sustainability, community-run events is where the money is, and he was fantastic. And he's coming back next year on the same basis. We didn't pay him, he just does it because he really believes in community and local things. And I guess that was just the evening meal at Fruiteville, which was catered for by the 100 Mile Harvest people. And this is the Nicholson River Winery with this stunning view. And I guess for me the interesting thing is that what you're really seeing there are actually, if you can see them, is actually a bunch of hippies as well, you know. And I just think that's been a really valuable role for Fruit to break down those barriers between the Meetung slow food mob and the permaculture hippies from Goongra. They all can come and be at this event and feel really comfortable and love it. Arts Victoria knocked us back on our next funding application and suggested we try to become a social enterprise and that we apply to the Social Traders Crunch program to be put through a business planning process, which we were successful at getting into, which was great. That gave us $10,000 to build our business plan, but it did require 6 months of travelling to and from Melbourne, and it was a fantastic program to basically build a business that was going to have a social benefit and benefit the wider community. And what we came to at the end of that 6-month program, and it was really, really tough, and we were the only regional group to make it into the program, was an artist-made travel bureau. So what we've tried to do from this idea that we have content, we obviously have natural beauty, but we're looking for the economic mechanism that will actually pay the artists for what they do instead of always asking them to volunteer, because that's the downfall of the whole system. For me, the people that make it the best place to live in get nothing and are always asked to do it for nothing. And unfortunately, Fruit is kind of in that category. We have had no support either. But a small group of us continue to fund it because we do believe it's the model of the future. We do think it's really all the best theory. We then applied to Dockland Spaces through the Renew Australia program. You might know they were trying to reinvent the Dockland Spaces. by embedding artists into their empty spaces. Can't say we've succeeded at saving Docklands, but we did get this Starbucks cafe to set up our first travel bureau at Dockland Spaces. And it meant everyone in East Gippsland was suddenly taking a bit of notice of us, because we were just getting more and more kudos around the programs that were letting us in and loving what we were doing. I've just put that one in because I guess even though we're very in love with East Gippsland, we actually think it's a big world out there that we need to tap into, and that networks are everything and word of mouth is everything, and the more we reach overseas, that's reciprocated. And we are a niche. We're not saying we're going to attract masses of people to what we do, but small audiences make a big difference to our ability to survive in regional places. So we've had a French tour, and the Moroccan tour is still in progress at the moment. And that's an artist from Nungurna who's a goldsmith, and she's leading a fruit tour around Morocco at the moment. And basically it's just that global love of good food and fruit and markets and conversation, and it's quite experimental for us. You know, we've partnered with an existing tour company to run these, so the artist gets a fee, so she gets all her travel, she gets the experience, she gets her professional development and a fee for doing it, and we get a small commission for helping to market it. Part of the idea of bringing people to East Gippsland was that we love the idea of glamping in the region, and that was an outcome of our business plan with the social traders, that we want people to come and travel the fruit route and discover all these things. And because there's not enough accommodation, we probably need to build our own camping accommodation. So last year's Fruiteville, we ran a campster design competition. We offered a $5,000 prize. This was a couple from Melbourne called Giant Grass who designed the winning camping design. And then we ran a Possible campaign that raised $10,000 that will help us build this in time for next year's Fruiteville. It's just our prototype. But luckily, the manager of the iconic Victorian Walks from Parks Victoria was travelling through East Gippsland at the time and came in and saw these amazing campster designs and called us into the office and said, you know, this is just what we're looking for. He said he's got no money, but, you know, at least it's someone who we know will support us when that does become available. And I suppose that gets to our relationship with Rural Councils Victoria, is that we applied for some funding to help develop the creative enterprises that underpin the fruit movement. Because if we're going to say we've got a destination, we need more content that complies with what we say is our brand. And that's a fairly long, slow burn conversation of filtering out the right people who are drawn to what we do. This is Tony. Tony's actually an artist who exhibits at the National Gallery. He was part of White Night last year, and he's a vegan chef and he loves fruit. So he was catering for Fruiteville last year with all vegan food, which disappointed a few of our attendees, I have to tell you, because there was no sausage sizzle. It was all nasi goreng and Bombay potatoes and things like that. But no, I think we've been told to rethink that for next year. But you know, like you say, it's nice to have a point of difference. You know, some people probably went disappointed, but others went, they'd actually been made to taste something that was really different and they did love. But they probably did go home wishing they'd had a bit of meat. I guess I'm just saying we're actually trying for all of these little creative enterprises to be viable businesses in their own right. So everything we do, we learn what's a good menu. You know, he probably did a slightly too complicated menu, so trim that back next time so that every time we do something, it's profitable. We went down and catered for the Emerging Writers Festival at Wheelers Centre and co-sponsored by Dumbo Feather, which was a great coup for us. We love Dumbo Feather as well, and lots of us are writers, so to get that awareness was worth the effort, you know, that we're always putting in. And just last Saturday we catered for the Great East Trail Ride that's the inaugural rail trail event for East Gippsland, and we were asked to do the fruit breakfast, and it's probably the best pay we've ever had for doing a breakfast. So they loved us. We didn't use any disposables. It was all crockery, cutlery, fresh fruit, local fruit, and everybody was happy. So that's another great thing that our organisation can keep doing and get better and better at. We got the RCV funding to develop the incubator, so we've inhabited a space in Bairnsdale which we're sharing with 5 other creatives. We've called it the Foundry, and we had an opening with our card, of course. It goes everywhere. We called for anyone in the community who knows what Froute is, would like to be part of the incubator. We're going to help you. It's mainly through collaboration. You know, it's only a little bit of funding to achieve a lot of big outcomes, but we do know that collaboration and networking is really what will get everyone through the process in the end. Maybe not everyone will make it, but it was great to get 20 people turn up willing to invest their time for the next 6 months in developing their business plan. There's an obvious hunger for it, there's an obvious capacity for it, and no one's filling that need at the moment. You probably know East Gippsland, maybe it's the same here. We've lost our TAFE, we've lost our Forest Tech. Our community college has gone into receivership. There is no arts training, and there's no small enterprise development going on at all. So we have a plan to be very responsive to individual needs and kind of respond to everybody's business plan. Lots of people put in their expressions of interest. We've already been offered a new space for free, which is really nice because that perpetuates the Renew Australia model of embedding artists in empty spaces. And we're continuing to build our travel bureau to offer fruit experiences. And Fruiteville 2015 is the 28th of February at Nicholson River Winery again. So if you'd like to come and join us, you're welcome. It's got a long history, and there's many dead ends we've taken that have not worked out, but I tried to kind of, present the kind of winning path that we've taken and seem to be making progress with. And when I heard Richard's talk this morning, I felt there was probably a lot in what we were doing that you were talking about in terms of community ownership of the brand. And I just hope resourcing your community to do it, because like I said, we don't get any money, and as an outsider from the Shire, I see a lot of money go into things that are just noise, you know, thousands of publications or whatever, you know, and really we can see $500 go so far. We just think there's some miscommunication going on between shires and their communities, that you're not hearing what's there. And you do need really passionate people, slightly crazy people. I have been called a bit obsessive about it, but there should have been a process that said somehow all the things we were saying were legitimate, because I'm sure the Shire response is really easy to kind of say, everybody wants money, back off, you know. But what we offered was some of the most experienced people with the best CVs, with the best experience, demonstrating, you know, great exhibitions and outcomes. But it's still really hard to be heard in everyone's demand for more, I guess. So I guess if we can find a way to have more conversations like that would be a great thing. Thank you.